Good day and merry meet. I am the occult wiki wizard bringing news of cults old and new to your screen. Please be advised many stories are from survivors of abuse and may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Cults are known to use various tactics to manipulate followers into acting in accordance with the leader's goals. In this story, spiritual or religious coercion, political coercion and commerce coercion, which is unfair labor practices involving followers, and others will be addressed. Today's bizarre tale comes from America's Heartland. House Kheperu, a band of self-proclaimed vampires, siphons money from its followers in a cycle of abuse that has carried on in plain sight for 3 decades. Are they real vampires or just sucking confidence and hard-earned money from their followers? You decide. It begins in the 1990s with just a single book, the Psychic Vampire Codex, which has over time transformed into a non-profit organization. The year was 1996, a time when the world was on the brink of a new millennium, filled with both anticipation and uncertainty. A shadow was spreading across America's heartland, emanating from the Ohio River Valley. It whispered of ancient power, of forbidden knowledge, of a lineage stretching back to the dawn of time. However, none of that was true. It was simply as fairy tale concocted for power, money, control, and clout. James Michael Fleitz, a former follower of 15 years and now whistleblower, says in a recent interview, quote, "In hindsight, the first red flag was probably my first-degree ritual in the group. For first degree, the group meets in a very specific ritual chamber. They're all convening in there, and you are ushered in separately and placed in the center of a circle of members who tear you apart. Every interaction you've had with them, they will use it against you. And they will do this for hours, until you are just a miserable pile. How you react to them is whether you pass or fail that first degree. And if you fail, you are not a member of the group." I remember there was a first degree where they had brought out a bucket of ice for this person to stand in. There was another girl that I remember being in a separate room, and they were screaming, calling her fat-shaming her. There was a former member who was a person of color, whose first degree was deemed so heinous it's still never discussed. It should be noted that in its nearly 30 years of existence, there have only been 4 people of color to ever join the group. For another member's first degree, the leader, who we shall refer to as the Emperor Michel, was nervous about this member failing and going public about what happened and asked, "Do you think I should record this?" And everyone said no, but the Emperor did it anyway without anyone's consent. This went against the rules of the group, but that somehow didn't apply to the Emperor. Intimate things are brought up during a first degree. If you had an abortion, if you have issues with your spouse, if you have trouble with your bills, your money, drugs, a parking ticket. Are you scared of spiders? Are you scared of heights? Are you ashamed of your body? Nothing is off the table. They will do whatever they can to break you down in that setting, and it's scary in a ritual circle. It's dark, it's smoky, you're surrounded by people that you kind of don't know that well yet, because it's your first degree, you're new, and they're there to just make you cry and feel like shit. You, quote-unquote, shared this experience, you cried together, you exposed yourself, and yet somehow afterward you feel great. After this, you're basically trauma bonded to them. And from that point on, anything you share with them can be used against you to keep you there. Unquote. For almost 30 years, House Kheperu has hidden in plain sight in America's heartland, preying on people of all walks of life. It took James a long 15 years before finding the courage to walk away from the abuse and toxicity. But then came the task of warning others of the dangers lurking, not just on shelves of bookstores worldwide, but online too. By this time, the cult had plenty of time to gain more traction and followers. Its founder has penchant for appearing on podcasts and television programs, which only grew House Kheperu's claim to fame. Often appearing in shows about ghosts and the paranormal, using histories of the dead as a source of attention and as so-called evidence or proof of her psychic abilities. Using the deceased as a platform of self-promotion. Considering the cult was born of the limelight of role-playing parties and fake fangs, it came as no surprise Michel basked in spotlight of film lights. On screen, she promoted her abilities to commune with spirits, and off-screen told followers she has the ability to stop a heart with a thought and will alone. This habit of presenting a false image to the public continues to this day. House Kheperu publicly proclaims, "Seek your own truth," while behind closed doors perform rituals designed to humiliate and traumatize their devotees using their deepest fears and secrets. Indeed, each follower initiated becomes psychological and financial weapons against themselves. Raised Catholic, Michelle Belanger, also known as ex-Oash, was born January 11, 1973, in Ravenna, Ohio. Belanger claims to have always wanted to be a priest and an author. This dream seems to have come true with the creation of House Kheperu. Belanger's allure was undeniable, a magnetic presence, drawing people in like moths to a flame, giving people an outlet to express their fantasies. She offered a seductive escape from the mundane, a chance to transcend the limitations of humanity and embrace a world of supernatural power. While allowing free website and Discord access, true membership was closely guarded, a privilege reserved for those deemed worthy by Belanger and the inner circle of minions. The initiation process was rigorous, designed to test the resolve and commitment of the aspirants. The so-called teachings, a blend of vampiric mythology, New Age spirituality, and Belanger's own esoteric interpretations, offered a seductive blend of empowerment and belonging. Followers were encouraged to explore their inner selves, to unlock hidden potentials and embrace their true nature. However, beneath the surface of mystical allure lurked a darker reality. The promises of power and enlightenment came at a cost, one that many were unaware of until it was too late. These so-called initiations were actually psychological operations. These rituals were manipulation tactics, designed to siphon resources while simultaneously blackmailing and threatening aspirants into complying with the cult's toxic, torturous cycle of ego and greed. As House Kheperu grew in size and influence, so too did Belanger's clout and control over followers. The influence was pervasive, extending into every aspect of their lives, shaping their thoughts and actions. What began as a pursuit of spiritual enlightenment gradually transformed into a system of psychological manipulation, where loyalty was paramount and dissent was met with swift and brutal retribution. The once promising path to enlightenment became a treacherous journey filled with fear and uncertainty. The whispers from the Heartland grew darker, tinged with fear and despair. The once hopeful seekers of truth found themselves ensnared in a web of control and manipulation. Their dreams of transcendence turned into a nightmare from which there seemed no escape. Despite the dark undercurrents, Michelle Belanger's public persona flourished. James says of her events, quote, "We're not talking about little 10-person events, we're talking about 100+ people coming to pay $60 a pop or more, flying in from other states. We even had people flying from other countries coming to attend this event. This was a proper event. We never saw any of that money. It was hours and hours of work and no one got paid for it. They were even throwing around this idea that, the group's money, which is a non-profit, should be rolled into the Emperor's money, especially since the Emperor Michel felt as though he was owed this as payback for members who had long since left that had caused him upset. A couple years ago, we started bringing up the money issues in the house and how things were being raised and used. We were told we were being bigots. It was only after members pressured the Emperor Michel and their spouse to donate to Black Lives Matter after what happened to George Floyd that they parted with a small donation. Any instances after that were met with excuses and a firm no. The moment we questioned how the funds were being used, we were accused of being bigoted." Unquote. Will current followers continue to suffer in silence, or will this unusual tale of political, spiritual, and financial manipulation come to an end? Since the early 90s, the whispers from the Heartland began to emanate. Michelle Belanger is the founder of House Kheperu and has consulted for numerous documentaries, books, and courses due to her self-proclaimed psychic or magical prowess. Has authored over 24 non-fiction books on paranormal and occult topics, appeared in numerous television documentaries about magic and modern occultism, such as A and E's Paranormal State and Osborne Media's Portals to Hell. Belanger has apparently, according to Wikipedia, also contributed to Marvel AR, HBO's True Blood, CNN Headline News, CSI, and Nox Arcana. Her followers, drawn by the promise of transformation and enlightenment, and later her clout for being a famous vampire, flocked to her banner, eager to immerse themselves in the seductive mythology she so carefully crafted. They sought meaning and purpose, something greater than the ordinary lives they led. Little did they know, they were stepping into a labyrinth of manipulation and control, where their vulnerabilities would be exploited and their lives forever altered. The path they chose was fraught with hidden dangers and unforeseen consequences. The cult's teachings, a blend of vampiric mythology, New Age spirituality, and Belanger's own esoteric interpretations, offered a seductive blend of empowerment and belonging. Followers were encouraged to explore their inner selves, to unlock hidden potentials and embrace their true nature. However, beneath the surface of mystical allure lurked a darker reality. The promises of power and enlightenment came at a cost, one that many were unaware of until it was too late. The initiation rituals were designed to break down the followers and traumatize them into submission. House Kheperu's rise to prominence coincided with the burgeoning digital age, a time when the internet was transforming the way people connected and shared ideas. Belanger, a savvy self-promoter, recognized the internet's potential as a tool for recruitment and indoctrination. She saw the web as a vast, untapped resource, a place where she could reach out to like-minded individuals who were searching for something more. She penned numerous books on vampirism, psychic development, and the occult, her words resonating with a growing subculture, hungry for spiritual exploration and alternative lifestyles. These books were meticulously crafted to appeal to those who felt out of place in mainstream society, offering them a sense of belonging and purpose. These books, often marketed as guides to self-discovery and empowerment, served as a gateway drug, drawing readers into Belanger's web of influence. They promised enlightenment and power, but ultimately led to deeper entanglement in the cult's ideology. With the advent of social media, House Kheperu's reach expanded exponentially. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram became new hunting grounds for potential recruits, allowing the cult to cast a wider net than ever before. Online forums and chat rooms became virtual coven houses, where members could connect, share their experiences, and deepen their immersion in the cult's ideology. These digital spaces provided a sense of community and support, making it easier for members to stay engaged and committed. Belanger, a constant presence in these online spaces, cultivated an image of accessibility and approachability, further solidifying her hold on her followers. She was always there, ready to offer guidance and support, making her followers feel valued and understood. She was no longer just an author or a spiritual leader. She was a friend, a confidant, a guiding light in the digital darkness. Her personal touch made her followers feel special, creating a strong emotional bond that was difficult to break. The internet provided Belanger with a powerful platform to disseminate her teachings and exert control over her followers. She could reach out to them at any time, reinforcing her messages and keeping them aligned with the cult's beliefs. She could communicate directly with her disciples, bypassing traditional media channels and shaping the narrative to her liking. This direct line of communication allowed her to maintain a tight grip on the group's activities and ensure that her vision was being followed. Dissent or criticism was swiftly silenced, dissenters ostracized and labeled as enemies of the group. This created an environment of fear and conformity, where members were afraid to speak out or question the cult's practices. The online world, once a haven for free expression, became a carefully curated echo chamber, reinforcing Belanger's authority and suppressing any challenges to her power. The cult's online presence was meticulously managed to ensure that only positive messages were amplified. As House Kheperu's online presence grew, so too did its real-world influence. The cult's teachings began to spill over into the physical world, attracting more and more followers who were eager to be part of something larger than themselves. The cult hosted gatherings and workshops, drawing attendees from across the country and beyond. These events were designed to deepen members' commitment and strengthen their ties to the group. These events, often held in secluded locations, served as opportunities for members to deepen their commitment to the group and to Belanger herself. They provided a space for intense bonding and indoctrination, away from the prying eyes of the outside world. After the pandemic hit in 2019, these parties went online for safety, but some have speculated it was for other reasons. The line between the virtual and the real blurred as online relationships solidified into real-world bonds, further tightening the cult's grip on its members' lives. The digital connections made through the internet became the foundation for real-life interactions, creating a powerful and inescapable network of loyalty and devotion. Ex-member James Michael Flights said in a recent interview, quote, "This group was based out of the Midwest. I'm from New Jersey, so as a very weird kid in high school, it felt nice to find other weird people. It felt nice to find a group that I resonate with. But even from within the group, I always felt ostracized, mostly because of my role in the group, and even more so because I was a long-distance member. I wasn't there in person to do all the group rituals or the group meetings. A lot of the back and forth took place over emails for many years. They would do an event every so often in person at a convention they would hold, and even then, it was very, very toxic." Unquote. James Michael's experience highlights a common thread among many who were drawn into House Kheperu. The initial allure of finding a community, especially for those who felt isolated or misunderstood in their everyday lives, was powerful. The promise of acceptance and belonging was irresistible to someone searching for their place in the world. However, the reality within the cult was far from the utopia it seemed at first glance. The infrequent in-person events, such as conventions, were supposed to be opportunities for bonding and deeper connection. Yet, as James Michael described, these gatherings were often toxic. The hierarchical structure within the cult ensured that those in lower tiers, especially the long-distance members, were treated as lesser. The promise of community and support was overshadowed by the reality of exclusion and toxicity, further worsened by the abuse of followers' personal vulnerabilities, which was meticulously gathered and noted during initiations and other interactions, to be weaponized against devotees as another method of control by leaders. The story of James is a poignant reminder of the duality within House Kheperu. The group offered a sanctuary for the misunderstood, but it also perpetuated a cycle of ostracism and emotional manipulation. The allure of belonging was a powerful hook, but the reality was a web of control and exclusion, leaving many members feeling more isolated than ever. When asked if the cult has a political ideology, James answered, quote, "Absolutely, but that's also what drew me in. I wanted to be in a group of people that accepts me for who I am. I didn't want to feel uncomfortable. But at a certain point, you start to realize how cutting that could actually be. Because if you don't fit in with exactly what the Emperor Michelle wants, you're bad. It was only a matter of time before you too became the enemy." Unquote. In his recent interview, James was asked, how did the hierarchy operate? And he answered, quote, "So within the group, there are 3 subgroups. They all operate and work with energy in unique ways. If you go by the law of the group, the leader's subgroup takers requires the most energy, and my subgroup givers provides energy. For the longest time, I was a part of the group for about 15 years. My group was treated like dirt, not treated very well by the other levels of the hierarchy. Oftentimes, they were just treating my group as a necessity, basically like a fount of energy to be used." Unquote. When asked if the followers were used for an energy food source, James answered, quote, "For the most part, yes. And the third group, the militants, which are very aggressive types, believe a lot of their past lives revolve around being physical warriors. To them, my subgroup is too emotional or delicate, useless, and they didn't really feel the need to have them around. And that kind of behavior carried over into the then present time in the group." Unquote. Whistleblower James shared a poignant revelation about his departure from House Kheperu, saying, quote, "I think at first it was a well-meaning cult. It was a group of friends that had a shared belief system that was harmless, but I think as the group leader withdrew more and more, they began to see the members of the group as forms of entertainment and would manipulate them to do crazy things, to be toxic, to tear each other down. We would regularly write up reports on each other, under the guise of assisting someone in doing what they called shadow work. Shadow work is largely considered a personal practice of self-exploration where you confront the more difficult elements of your personality in the pursuit of self-development. In this group, shadow work was often pressured to be public and weaponized within the group, which twisted the whole purpose of what shadow work was meant to do. Going back to what I said earlier, all of our engagements were there to get to know each other and use it against each other. So we would do anonymous little reports, expose the crazy bad things that these people were doing, even when they were just like innocuous things, and these people would get punished, they would be embarrassed, they would be exposed. It's shameful, but for many years, that's what was going on. Unquote. When asked if group humiliation was commonplace, James continued, quote, "Absolutely. I mean, one of the members had their marriage like fucking blown up. Personal things that had nothing to do with anything were brought up. Plus, the group leader's significant other is a millionaire and would loan money out to people and hold it against them. I've invested in the group, my time, my energy, my attention, hundreds of hours, hundreds. Like at one point we rewrote the rule book literally in a weekend, and that was like 100 pages in a weekend. Before my first degree, I translated the entire website into Spanish, at least 100 articles that were never used. I was told it's a shame they weren't in French, okay, but I also purchased all of the Emperor Michel's books. I was a Patreon for them. I supported all of their endeavors. I helped make their incense. And when I say make incense, you don't know how much work goes into making incense. It's hours of work. After I left, I made it a point to say that I wanted to go of my own free will. I would hold my oaths that I made in my first degree and in my second degree, but I wanted to leave with grace and I didn't want any drama. And shortly after I left, a few other members left as well. And this leader has basically taken to a smear campaign publicly on Twitter, publicly on their Discord channels, and is making us out to be the bad guy. We've done our best to just stay quiet and not say anything. But at this point, I think it's time for someone to say something. A part of me wanted to make this anonymous. But I feel like if I were to hide under anonymity, the Emperor Michel would go after some of the other people and assume that it's them." Unquote. James Michael's words reflect a crucial turning point for many former members of House Kheperu. The courage to speak out, despite the fear of retaliation, underscores the deep psychological toll the cult has taken on its followers. The smear campaigns and public shaming are tactics often used by cult leaders to maintain control and silence dissent. These actions not only serve to discredit the whistleblowers, but also instill fear in those who remain, ensuring their continued loyalty. The departure of James Michael and other members highlights a significant crack in the facade of House Kheperu. Members are expected to dedicate more than their unquestioning loyalty, but also their time, money, and most intimate fears and secrets. The group's veneer of unity and acceptance begins to crumble under the weight of these revelations. The stories of those who have left paint a picture of a community that is far from the sanctuary it claims to be. Instead, it is a place where fear and manipulation are wielded to maintain control. The decision to break the silence is not an easy one. It comes with the risk of further ostracism and retaliation. Yet it also represents a powerful act of reclaiming one's voice and agency. For James Michael and others, speaking out is a way to shed light on the darker aspects of House Kheperu, to reveal the truth behind the carefully constructed image of the group. It is a step towards healing and liberation, not just for themselves, but for others who may still be ensnared by the cult's influence. House Kheperu's allure lay in its promise of belonging and transcendence. It offered an escape from the mundane, blending the ordinary with the extraordinary. For the lost and alienated, House Kheperu seemed to be a sanctuary. It provided a sense of community and acceptance. The cult's teachings, a mix of vampiric mythology and New Age spirituality, offered a path to self-discovery and empowerment. The rituals made members feel special and chosen. Members were encouraged to explore their shadow selves and latent psychic abilities, framed as a path to enlightenment. This broke down personal boundaries, making them more malleable. This focus on transformation masked a sinister agenda, dismantling individual identity to create unquestioning obedience. The promise of transformation was a double-edged sword. Belanga used ritual and symbolism to evoke deep emotional responses and strengthen group bonds. House Kheperu's ceremonies were elaborate and theatrical, designed to evoke awe and a sense of belonging. The dramatic atmosphere made it easier for Belanga to exert control. These rituals broke down psychological barriers, making members more susceptible to suggestion. The sensory overload and emotional intensity created a powerful environment for indoctrination. The combination of sensory overload, emotional manipulation and group pressure suspended critical thinking, reinforcing Belanga's authority. The cult's recruitment tactics relied on personal connections. Members were encouraged to bring in friends and family, targeting the vulnerable. The promise of a supportive community and enlightenment lured in those feeling lost or disconnected. The fear of ostracism for failing to recruit created a powerful incentive for compliance. This system of peer pressure ensured a steady stream of new recruits, solidifying Belanga's power. Former follower James Michael shared his deeply personal experience within House Kheperu. Quote, "I came into the group very young, and I looked up to the Emperor Michel and one other elder who had left, almost as parental figures. You know, I was raised in a very weird way. I didn't really have a parental figure in my life, and so, being dropped into this group straight out of high school, I kind of latched onto these people and I tried to acclimate to the dynamics in the group. I learned to walk on eggshells around them, and yet I really grew fond of these people." Unquote. For James Michael, the experience was a complex mix of admiration and fear. The group structure filled a void in his life, yet it also imposed a heavy psychological burden. Quote, "I think that a bunch of the other people who left with me were much closer to this person, and it probably hurt them even more when they left. I may have been kind of insignificant, but having my identity be a part of this group for so many years and all of a sudden be free of it was strange but also very liberating." Unquote. The liberation came with its own challenges. Breaking free from a group that had defined his existence for so long was both daunting and empowering. James Michael's words highlight the emotional turmoil that accompanies such a drastic change. Quote, "At the end of the day, if I had to tell the Emperor Michel one specific thing, it would be, I've seen this happen to you time and time again, and for someone who emphasizes that everyone should do the work and go to therapy, I'm stunned that you would even question why this keeps happening to you. For someone who claims to be so brilliant, it's incredible how truly out of touch you actually are with your friend groups and those who you are oathed to." Unquote. His reflection serves as a warning and a critique, not just of the leader, but of the entire system that allowed such manipulation to thrive. James continues, saying, quote, "For now, in your circles, we are the bad guys, but only until history repeats itself again, because the problem is not us, it's you. Many people looked up to you, I looked up to you, but the sad truth is never meet your heroes because they just might turn out to be a bootleg LRH." Unquote. The courage to speak out against such a powerful figure is a testament to the resilience of those who have escaped. Their voices are crucial in exposing the truth and preventing others from falling into similar traps. To dive deeper into James's story, read the original article called Vampire Cult Chronicles, Interviewing the Vampire on HorrorPress.com by Tiffany Taylor. Will this vampire cult continue to wreak havoc? Or will this unusual tale of manipulation come to an end? The story of House Kheperu serves as a stark reminder of how the search for belonging and purpose can lead individuals into the grasp of manipulation and control. It underscores the importance of vigilance and critical thinking in the face of alluring promises and charismatic leaders. For those who have escaped the clutches of such groups, their journey is far from over. Healing and rebuilding a sense of self can be a long and arduous process, yet their stories are crucial in shining a light on the darkness and guiding others away from similar fates. The bravery of survivors in sharing their experiences cannot be overstated. It is through their voices that we can hope to dismantle the power structures of manipulative groups and prevent future generations from falling victim to such deceit. The seeds we plant in darkness always come to light. Plant well. Good night, Merry meet and merry part in this dance of eternal art. This has been an Occult WikiLeaks news bulletin.